Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me here. I want to give some insights about my career, but also maybe my background. Maybe this will help on reflections, what helped me in my career. Also, maybe some insights or why some careers are developing maybe sometimes faster than others. When I look back from where I'm coming from, maybe I want to start with the phrase, a lot of you guys like Turkish kebab and people maybe around Cologne. I assume you know the Kuip Street, which is like the Turkish heart of Cologne. And this is how I grew up. I grew up in Germany, in Wiesbaden, as a second generation. I born in Germany, in the middle of the little Istanbul, actually it's called, in Wiesbaden. And it was interesting, you know, when you walk through the streets, it's like in Turkey. You don't feel like you're in Germany. Some people are frightened walking there. They wouldn't send their daughters in the evenings over there. But we grew up with 4 siblings in that area, and it was actually, for me, quite nice. But on the other side, also, you feel like it's not developing in terms of integration, because it's like Turkish shops, Turkish barba, Turkish kebab, everything is in Turkish. You don't need to even learn German. And this is how my actually background started, because growing up there, being in Germany, it's very interesting. At home, you're Turkish, but you go out, it's expected that you be German because you grew up in Germany. And this is, I think, where all the confusion in me started, because am I Turkish, am I German, I don't know. I think I would say either today. But when people ask me, I always said I'm Turkish, because obviously the look, I mean, I look like very German, I guess. That's, I think, the first part. But when you look beyond that, it's like fighting for an identity, because you go outside, you always be an immigrant, you're visible, you feel that, because it is a challenge in life. You're always confronted with bias. It is there everywhere, doesn't matter where you are. But on the other side, you want to get an identity. So everybody who asked me, I said, I'm Turkish. But I can tell you one thing, a couple of years later, or many years later, when I lived in Turkey, after 4 months, one of my colleagues asked me, how do you feel? I said, I'm very German, to be honest. I can tell you, if you grew up in Germany, you think you're Turkish, you go to Turkey after being age of 35, 36, I realized that you're completely German, work ethics, how you live, how you work. And that was the biggest confusion in my life, but I think this also made one of my biggest strengths, because the fighting for the identity, fighting for your rights and for your achievements was not always easy. And this is the picture of my youth. I was, I think, 11. This was the wedding of my brother. That's why I have a suit on. And now today, I'm 29 years later, leading one of the biggest markets in Germany. And there are many turning points in life when I look back. And what are the turning points? I think maybe it starts with I would say, my parents, because I learned about courage. And courage is very important, I think, when you want to develop your career. You know, just imagine in the 70s, your parents are coming from a country, no education. They don't speak any language. There's no internet to support, no English, nothing. They have no money and come to Germany for work, and hard work. I would say my father and mother work in the factories in shifts, and we were 4 siblings in a 70 square meter apartment. That's how our life was. But this gave me a lot of strength, because you learn to fight, you learn courage, you need to be better than others. I think this was a really development opportunity for me and for my character, maybe. I started working very early in my life, already in school with 12, 13, 14, helped my mother when she was going cleaning. And this is something which drafts you to say work is good, work is helping you. And if you progress, you can even develop yourself. And then maybe I want to skip forward. And when I get 18, I was doing my high school diploma in mechanical engineering. And on the weekend, as an 18-year-old, what do you expect? I mean, I like party, I go disco, I go with friends. I was really partying the whole weekend. And one day my brother said, you want to earn some money on the weekend? And there my life changed. This was my first turning point in my life. I said, okay, stop partying. Think about earning some money when you go to school also, to get more independent. And I started to work for DHL with 18, part-time employee, 20 hours a week. I was just offloading containers and loading containers, the hard work. But it was fun, to be honest. And I think one of the turning points which come after was, after around 8-9 months, I was approached by a manager. And that's why I want to reflect later on. But I was approached by a man saying, I see an opportunity in you. You're quite young, you're smart, we see opportunity, we want to invest in you. You want to work full-time. And this was a big change. You know, I'm studying during the week and then working part-time on the weekend. So I decided to stop school. And this was a big hit for my mom. You know, just imagine when your parents working very hard, they only work hard to get you to school, to not work as hard as they worked in the past. And this was where I made a decision which I actually nearly regretted. And this is what I call risks. You know, maybe I go on the second page talking about the story there. I took a risk there. I took a risk to say, okay, I stopped that and I will make my career in the company. And it didn't happen. I took the full-time job. I quit the school. 1, 2, 3 years left. And I was always skipped when there was job advertisement for leadership roles. And I didn't get the job. And then 4 years later, I had a chance where a manager believed in me or trusted in me, which is very important. I think building trust is one of the key things which I would like to give to you guys to think about it, how to do it. I had an opportunity to get my first leadership role. I was 22 years of age. And just imagine your whole team is like 35, 40 years. You're 22 years young, never led a team. There was not a lot of educational support in your environment at that time when I was working for DHL. And we changed today, by the way. We have one of the biggest training environment currently in any companies outside. But I was not having that luck, to be honest. But I learned. I learned with risks. I learned with networking. That's why I want to refer on the networking side. A lot of people think about networking is knowing a lot of people, connecting with a lot of dots, and connecting with the people. That's not the case, that I can tell you. Networking is not only knowing a lot of people. Networking is creating friendship, mutual trust, because networking is not only taking, it's also giving a lot. So if you want to take something, you need to give a lot in your life, and a lot of time when people ask you for support. And this helped me, honestly. But the comfort zone is there because I was working still in Frankfurt, but the Frankfurt environment for there where I was working is around 200 people. And if you want to make career, you need to wait. Because when there are only 200 people, there are so many leadership roles. I was already a leader, frontline leader. The second step, either my boss needs to die. That was one thing I never hoped for him, to be honest. Or he needs to retire, which was at least 14 years ahead. So potentially, if I wouldn't decide to move on in my organization, I was potentially maybe in the same role today and wouldn't have any career. So you need to make some moves and steps in your life, which is mobility, which is, I think, one of the key areas I want to give. If you expect career just waiting for the opportunity where you are, I do not believe it will come as fast as you do with a lot of mobility. So people who are moving internationally, people who are moving in the country and learning different cultures is a big topic. Even for me, which I believe I'm Turkish, I can tell you, in Turkey, I learned first time real culture, what is Turkish culture. Because you need to be there, you need to be in the environment, in the working environment to understand the difference. And risks are coming there very often. Give an example, my mobility, moving to Turkey, I lived 10 years in Turkey, which was my dream at one stage, which was great, happened with one phone call. I received one phone call, which was my former boss at that time. I said, I need you in Turkey. I said, okay, great. I mean, how many months? 2 months normally, because I was leading a lot of projects, traveling around Europe. I lived nearly in all European cities and countries where we actually had operations. But then I thought it's like a project. I need to help the team to improve their performance in the country. No, he said, you need to stay 5 years. Today, often young people, we struggle even to send them in the same country for an opportunity going from here to Munich. It's not happening. People say, no, I don't want to move. I like where I am. And it's difficult, you know. And I got a call, and I asked him, when should I be in Turkey? He said, 14 days. Just imagine, you live in a city, like I was Leipzig at that time, and you need to give up your apartment, move out, make every paperwork ready, and move from Leipzig to Istanbul. It was actually not 14 days. I made it in 21 days, but I was out in 21 days. And this is, again, mobility, risk, taking the challenge. And this is something often people don't want to do. They want to get the career, but nothing to do with that. So nothing to give about that. And I can tell you, a lot of people will talk about work-life balances for career. I'm not a believer in that. For me, work is really very important. You need to be very dedicated. If you want to really make a career, you need to be extremely dedicated. It's like sports. You have multiple thousand sports people doing sports outside, but there are very few people are getting very successful. And if you want to really get successful, you need to put it in the center of your life, and your family needs to support you. And you need to have right support with your family, and this is not easy. A lot of my expat colleagues traveling around the globe, and the family is moving with them. The kids are growing up. I remember one of my friends, one of the kids are born in Dubai, the other daughter is born in Denmark, the other daughter is born in Netherlands. And so international, and they're living in Leipzig at the moment. That's, I think, very important to understand that you need to give up a lot. I gave up a lot in my life, a lot. So my parents, I see them maximum once or twice a year. I was away from my siblings more than 10 years. But the difference is we do more quality time. You know, just being together is not always the best thing, but if you have quality time together, if you really use the time to be with full presence there, is the most successful version of getting the things done, on getting the family together. And the feedback side, I want to maybe add as one of the important points. People struggle sometimes with giving feedback. You know, giving feedback about good things happening is easy. But giving feedback about things you don't like is very important, not only for you, because there's something you don't like in your environment, but there's also somebody maybe needs support from you, because I see it as a gift, to be honest, that can help him to be better. And this is something which I learned in my career life. Give feedback as much as you can, be very honest and transparent, but also help your colleagues or friends to be better. And there's good models how you can give feedback and take feedback. And for me, it was also taking feedback. Most of my colleagues, I'm asking, was it okay today? Is there anything I can do better? To get feedback from my colleagues to also be better every day. And this is not easy, because often people have a lot of egos, especially when you get more senior. People sometimes are losing humbleness or grounding. And then I think feedback is getting very difficult, but then you lose. And this is something, some of you guys maybe 20 years later will lead this company. But the only thing what I will give you also is be present. I mean, today I'm a hater of Teams calls, I need to be honest. I love presence. I love to be physical there, because it's more than words, because people's body language are very critical. So if you want to understand and being really creating this trust environment, which was relying on the networking side, you need to be physically there. We have 34 stations in Germany. I visit every single station at least once to 3 times a year. My colleagues in the head office doesn't see me at least 3 days a week, and my family as well, because I'm there with my colleagues making Q&As, making PDs, together performance dialogues, to talk to them, to understand. And when I go out, I know I have a feeling if something is wrong or not. It's not only the words you hear. That's a little maybe turning points or topics I can give you. Thank you for listening. Really nice to be here. First time I have such a speech. It's very interesting. And maybe we see us later again. Thank you. Thank you.